Hello, I'm Corey Hello, and welcome to another episode of Critimation, where I review animated TV shows and films. As always, I do not own any of these films or shows. They are properties of their respected owners. Our first topic will be the Tiny Toons reboot episode, Save the LooBru. The episode starts off with Bugs Bunny giving the students a lecture on having a nemesis, using examples of how to outwit them. In his case, he references dressing in drag, which he not only demonstrates but also shows an image from his classic cartoon, Rabbit Seasoning. After the class is over, the gang learned from Dizzy Devil that the LooBru coffee shop is going to close down after being bought by Montana Max, who becomes Buster Bunny's nemesis. According to Dean Granny, the millionaire was able to attend the school as a transfer student thanks to his athletic scholarship. So while Dizzy crashes over at Babs and Sweetie Bird's dorm room, driving them nuts during his stay, Buster tricks Montana Max by dressing in drag and posing as the businesswoman Ruthless in order to try to get him to give up the deed to the LooBru. But before the deal could be finalized, the makeup from Buster's disguise literally melts off. Despite the failed attempt, Hampton was able to swipe one of Max's trophies. Upon inspection, the gang learned that the scholarship was a fake, thereby saving the LooBru and expelling Montana Max. The episode ends with Bugs giving a pep talk to Buster, saying that he'll get better with practice. Apparently, during his early years, Bugs' wig was often snatched. Yet another reference to Rabbit Seasoning. The two then put on a drag show for the students to celebrate their victory. One notable aspect I noticed from this episode was that both Bugs and Buster Bunny are dressing in drag, something that we haven't seen them do in quite some time. Since the days of Shakespeare, there have been men performing in woman-based roles, often referred to as a theatrical exaggeration of gender. The art form of drag queen often overthrows gender stereotypes. And while it can be associated with the LGBTQ plus community, drag is meant to expose people to alternate views of one's gender and sex identity. Not to be confused with cross-dressing, which involves someone disguising themselves as the opposite sex. Think Mrs. Doubtfire. Drag is more of a performance. Contrary to popular belief, anyone can do drag, not just cis gay men. And drag can be used for both entertainment and in some cases a social movement, such as the Stonewall riots of 1969, which involved drag queens actively resisting arrest. And despite political pushback, the popularity of drag shows continues to grow, partially thanks to artists like RuPaul, who hosts the popular show RuPaul's Drag Race. The three major components of drag include a stage name, taking the stage, which often involves striving for overkill through heavy makeup, falsies, and the tuck-in technique as they call it, combined with the vulgar presence of being on stage and the drag queen's desire to shock. And finally, introducing the idea of gender fluidity through performance. All three of these components can be seen in this episode, as Buster takes on the stage name Ruthless, uses heavy makeup, and when his identity is revealed to Montana Max, he is in shock. And while not heavily implied, gender fluidity is shown in a couple of scenes. I think people who watch this episode will appreciate the fact that unlike the original Looney Tunes cartoons, The use of drag is not just as a gag to show someone in an attractive get-up, but to showcase that being in drag is more than just a caricature. It can be a form of entertainment as well. It may not be appealing to everyone, but knowing that they're able to keep a century-old joke with Bugs Bunny alive and put it in a new, relevant way is very assuring. And I would recommend this episode to anyone who's fans of the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, but would like to see some of their older, possibly outdated jokes updated in a new and interesting way that's entertaining. Our next topic will be the Fairly Odd Parents episode, Snowbound. Timmy's mom, along with her girlfriends, have made up a lie that their aunt is sick, allowing them to spend some time at a ski resort away from their husbands. Unfortunately, Timmy's dad sees a commercial about an abominable snowman nearby, and says in his mind, women mean the opposite of what they say. He heads for the ski resort to protect her, dragging Timmy and Vicky along. Vicky, of course, using Dad's belief to get an easy buck by saying she doesn't want to come and meet hot guys and she'll work for free. So while Dad looks for the abominable snowman, Vicky uses Timmy as a snowboard, much to his anger, stating that she is the worst human being in history. Vicky then demands that Timmy stop shredding, which during the process causes an avalanche. The snow from the avalanche then traps them inside a cave, and Timmy can't wish them out because Cosmo and Wanda in their fish forms are frozen inside the fishbowl. Shortly after, Timmy declares that since he's going down, he'll be happy knowing that Vicky's going with him, because after all these years, she's finally getting what she deserves. Vicky, realizing the error of her ways, then begins crying. This makes Timmy suddenly feel surprisingly sorry for her, and he suggests keeping themselves warm by hugging. Shortly after, the abominable snowman shows up and chases them, trapped between a dead end and the snowman. Vicky surprisingly protects Timmy because they hugged, and Timmy, seeing a hole in the roof of the cave, then gets out and uses the sun to thaw Cosmo and Wanda. He then goes back with a big tank wished up by Cosmo and Wanda. The two then escape on Cosmo and Wanda in snowboard form, with the snowman right behind them. Once they return to the ski lodge, much to Timmy's mom's surprise, the snowman reveals to just be the pizza guy, whose jacket and very hard abs made him look more abominable. Timmy's dad then appears, and because of his stupidity, believes that Timmy's mom and her friends are celebrating their aunt's getting better. However, the happy ending is pretty short-lived because Vicky goes back to old ways on account of Timmy basically taking her away from a hot guy, which she will never forgive him for, thereby keeping the continuity of the show intact. While this episode was pretty bittersweet in its ending, it was very interesting to see a what-if scenario. In fact, the idea for this episode was conceptualized by creator Bush Chapman's own daughter, Sophia. Nonetheless, I would totally recommend this episode to fans of the what-if scenario, as it shows what could have been had the show had actual character development and didn't have to reset itself at the end of each segment. Our last topic is the Disney short, Chicken Little. Unlike the 2005 CGI movie, This version of the fairy tale was made in 1943 during the height of World War II and was meant to inform citizens of the US not to listen to rumors or political leaders who might have a more sinister purpose to their agenda. The short begins at a chicken farm, and after the introduction of all the supporting characters, Foxy Loxy takes a fancy to the gathering of the fowls. Through psychology, he's able to convince Chicken Little that the sky is falling. Thankfully, Cocky Locky is there to debug this. Not willing to give up, Foxy Loxy then spreads rumors about Cocky Locky in order to make him look bad and have the masses lose their faith in him. This works to his advantage as he is then able to make Chicken Little look more like a born leader, and through his trickery, traps them in his own cave where they are then eaten. As mentioned before, this film is a propaganda short rather than the traditional adaptation to a fairy tale. In fact, the book that Foxy Loxy was going to quote from was originally going to be Hitler's Mein Kampf, but it was decided later on to downplay the Nazi imagery, and thereby keep the short from becoming dated later on. But of course the dark ending to this short shows that the message that they were trying to convey is very clear. And I would not recommend this to children. This is one Disney short that parents need to look at first before deciding if it's age appropriate. Thanks for tuning in to Critimation. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter. I'm open to suggestions, and I will see you next time.